And okay. So we're gonna speak about the importance of listening to devotees and how the art of listening, hearing, is important in our service to other devotees. And we're also going to talk about how it's important in terms of, not in terms of, how it's important for leaders to be able to listen. So, there's a few key elements that are required when we listen, and listening is a service. We're not talking here about listening to classes or listening to Bhagavatam. We're talking about listening to devotees when they speak to us, when they open up. So the two key elements are, one, you keep confidence, which means you don't tell anybody, as long as they've asked for confidence, or you can understand that what they're saying is confidential. And the other thing is that you listen without judgment. Well, there's more than two. You listen without judgment. And in many cases, or often, listen without giving advice. That's interesting. Listen without giving advice. So we all like to give advice. So it's hard to listen. It's hard to listen without judgment. It's hard to listen without giving advice. And it's also hard to sometimes listen to things that that may disturb us, but that a person needs to speak about. So why are we listening without judgment? Why are we listening to things that may even be incorrect, or people revealing things deep within inside of them that may even border on offense? Why are we listening? Why are we listening without judgment? And why are we keeping confidence? We're not telling anybody. The reason is we all need someone to speak to open up to about our problems, for several reasons. One reason is, if I have a problem and I can talk about it, I can clarify what the problem is, I can clarify how I feel about it, and I can clarify what I do about it. The other reason is that sometimes the problem is burdensome, and by talking about it, it relieves the burden of it. It just the energy dissipates. Where is the camera? The energy. Camera's supposed to be right. I thought the camera was right. Sorry. The energy dissipates when we talk about it. So sometimes something is a burden. If we can talk about it, and a person can listen without judging and just lets us speak, it relieves the burden of it. It relieves the weight. And sometimes it actually dissolves the problem just by talking about it. And sometimes when someone talks, they'll just say, thank you for listening. I just needed to talk about it, or I just needed to get it off my chest. One time we were having a course and we were talking about some male issues, male problems. And the devotees mentioned that they never talked about these problems before with anyone. And it was a real relief to be able to share. And it was also a relief for them to hear other people sharing, because in other people sharing, they realized they had the same problems as the other people. And it didn't make them feel so bad. I mean, it's not that we're happy that other people have the same problems we have, but they were happy to know that they weren't the only one who had those problems. So a lot of times when people share with you, they may be sharing a problem that you yourself have. And that's also good for you. It's therapeutic to hear it, and to hear how they talk about it, hear how they analyze it, hear how they want to deal with it. So take listening to another devotee as a seva, as a service, as a way you can help them. Now, where does this come up? Where is this art of listening referred to in Shastra? So it comes up in Nectar of Instruction. Guyam akyati. Guyam akyati. Guyam means confidential. Akyati means to speak confidentially. So if I speak to you confidentially, then according to Rupa Goswami, by opening up what's inside of me in confidence, that is a symptom of love. People who are love one another, or people who want to love one another, they reveal their innermost secrets. So Guyam means secret or confidential. It's the same thing. Guyam means deep or hidden. So whatever hidden deep inside of you, your secrets, you will only reveal those, generally only reveal those to those close to you. And the Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when you reveal inner secrets, it also makes people close to you. It also creates the relationship. And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, don't reveal inner secrets with non-devotees because it's a symptom of love. And by opening up to non-devotees, you become closer, and then you imbibe their associations or whatever bad qualities or bad consciousness or habits they have, you imbibe more, the more there's affection and closeness. And so one of the ways to manifest affection or create affection, both manifested and created, is to reveal what's deep inside of you. Then you reveal that to a confidential associate, to someone you trust. Now, if somebody reveals something confidential to you, that means they have some trust in you. That means they trust you won't judge them. They trust you'll understand them. And they trust that you'll keep it confidential. So what does it mean to keep it confidential? It's a challenge for some of us to keep something confidential. Keeping something confidential means you're the only person that knows, and you don't talk about it to anyone. You don't say, I spoke to so-and-so and they told me something, but I can't tell you. You don't even go that far. You just don't talk about it. You know? And if someone knows you spoke to so-and-so, say, what did you speak about? And say, it was confidential. I promised not to tell anyone. It doesn't go beyond that. Now, the meaning of confidential, at least if I'm speaking to you, the meaning of confidential for me is you won't tell anybody. It's just for you. And so in order for me to speak confidentially in the future with you, you have to demonstrate that when I reveal what's going on inside of me, you don't share it with anyone because I reveal it to you in confidence, which means it's only for you. Now you may ask, I think this is important what you've said, would you allow me to share this with so-and-so? You could ask permission, but if you don't ask permission and you don't get permission, then you don't have the right to share it. That's what it means to listen in confidence. So if someone is speaking to you in confidence, just make the assumption that you're listening in confidence and understand that confidence does not mean telling a trusted friend who you believe or who you asked to keep confidential. It means not sharing it with anyone. That's what it means. So I think a lot of devotees don't honor the confidence of another because they're not defining confidence in the same way that the person who's speaking is defining confidence. The person who's speaking means that you're the only one who's going to listen. And then we might think, well, I can tell a trusted friend or I can tell my spouse. So this is very, very important. If I tell you something in confidence, you have no right to tell anybody at all. And you have no right to use that information against me. Now, there are some legal implications. If I tell you I killed somebody, at least in America, you're legally bound to report me. And we could say morally bound to report me. So sometimes if someone says, can I share something with you in confidence? You'll say, yes, but if you've done something illegal and you share that with me, I'm morally bound to report you to the police. And in fact, if later on a court finds that you heard or this person told you what they did and you didn't report it, then you can be found guilty, or you will be found guilty and you will be punished. That's the law. And you might say, well, that's not the law in my country. But still, you're somewhat morally bound to deal with someone who's done something illegal. Otherwise, you're supporting illegal activity. So you may want to let them know, yes, there's confidence, but if you tell me you've done something illegal, I can't hold that in confidence. I may. So or you may need to tell the temple president, because this person may be a hazard in the temple because of what you learn that they've done. Or you might say, well, if it's necessary for the protection of the devotees, I may have to tell an authority. So at least give them that much leeway. But most devotees, when they speak confidentially, they're not talking about illegal activities. They're talking about anarthas. They're talking about challenges. They're talking about desires they would like to become free from. Or they're talking about things that are confusing them, doubts that they have, maybe even doubts in their spiritual master, maybe even doubts in the whole process of Krishna consciousness. And they need to talk about it confidentially, and they don't want all the devotees to know that they have these doubts. So your definition of confidence is what? Nobody hears. You're the last person that heard this. That's what it means to be confidential. So if someone says, please don't tell anybody, if you, by your own knowledge of yourself, realize that, and I think this is true for some people actually don't have the ability to be confidential. It's impossible for them to hold something secret. So if you realize that about yourself, just tell them, I'm not good at keeping things secret. Even if I tell you, I'll tell my husband, I'll tell my best friend. Even if I promise to you not to, I know my weakness, I will. So if that's the case, you should tell them. And if that's the case, you should understand you can't be considered a person who can listen confidentially. And so that's something you may want to consider, and it's something you may want to work on. But if the principle is, if you do tell somebody, yes, I won't tell anybody, then you should follow that. And if you feel that you have a weakness and you can't keep things confidential, at least let them know. Say, that's my weakness. I'm not good at keeping things confidential. And if you tell your husband or you tell your best friend, and they're not good at keeping things confidential, then they'll tell their spouse and their best friend, and then that thing that I told you that I wanted to keep confidential, now it's known practically by everyone in the temple, or many people in the temple. And so that's a disservice. So now, Nandita. I'm glad you brought this up. How about the curse to Kunti Devi that women cannot keep secrets? I was thinking about this morning, and I've heard many stories in which Srila Prabhupada was asked, is it actually true, Prabhupada, that the women only have 32 ounces brain size? And Prabhupada would say, no, when you become a devotee, 64 ounces. So it reveals that the 32-64, Prabhupada didn't take that entirely seriously. But that was what science was saying at that point in time. So he was using that science because it made a point. But many, many times, Prabhupada would say, no, when you become a devotee, then you are 64 ounces. So I think in the same vein, we might say, oh yes, women were cursed. They can't keep a secret. But maybe we could say ordinary women, not devotees, because devotee women are not ordinary women. So you have the power to transcend that curse. But as I said, Krishna Karshani said, it's good to share secrets to husbands because they don't listen. I can tell you what I do. I don't know if this will be easy for you, but what I do is I've programmed myself, because a lot of times when people confide in me, they say, you're not going to tell anybody. They're making an assumption that I won't tell anybody, and they're just confirming, you're not going to tell anybody. And I tell them that I have a mechanism within my brain that I've developed that when after we speak, I completely forget what you said. So if you talk to me next month and you say, remember the conversation we had, I'll say, tell me, remind me, because I consciously forget to ensure that there's no slip or there's no accident in which I could reveal a secret that you wanted to keep secret. So I don't know, I can't say how you developed this mechanism. It is something I just made a decision to do. And so I'm present in the moment when I'm listening to someone. And as soon as the conversation's over, this mechanism in my brain just wipes it out because they don't want anyone to know. So therefore, there's no use for me to remember. And if there is a use for me to remember, they can remind me. So when we speak next time, I'll say, remind me of what we spoke about. And then they'll remind me. And the way the memory works is you remember things you forget. I may forget what we spoke about, but then you remind me, and then I remember we spoke about that. So you can forget things that you remember. You can like put it on pause. Just, okay, what you've spoken to me, I just put it on pause. I forget it. So that's something I try to do. And I think one of the ways to do that is also because it's a service. So I do that as a service and not take so much interest in what's aside from how I can help you, not take so much interest in retaining information about people, because the interest in retaining it is to share it with others. And I have no interest in sharing it because I promised not to. So therefore, I have no interest in retaining it. And therefore, I've turned a switch on my mind is that after you speak to me about your problems, I go into some kind of amnesia. I can't remember what you said. So that's something to consider. Maybe it's a function of the human brain that we all can do that. So, yeah, and then Krishna Karshani says husbands don't listen. Well, don't assume that you can talk to them because they won't listen. And always think as a service to the person you've listened to, you've promised to keep it confidential. So that's your service. Because listening is part of the loving exchange. Listening it is guyam atyati. They're explaining in confidence, and confidence means it's just you, it's a secret, they don't want it shared. So understanding that, then that becomes your seva to them, your service. And that, according to Rupa Goswami, is an action of love, which is both a symptom of love and what creates love. That's important. So that creates a deeper relationship between you and that devotee. It creates more love. Wilfred says, there are plenty of men who can't keep secrets. Isn't idle gossip a symptom of Kali Yuga? Yeah. I think as a side point, I'm glad you brought this up, because as a side point, these global statements that women are like this or men are like this, we should be careful about them, especially when we're speaking about devotees. Because anyone who becomes a devotee is an exalted soul, for sure. Right? You agree? And so whether they're men or women or white or black or from Mongolia or South America, Russian, Indian, whatever they are, they're special, they're different. And so I might say all Mexicans are like this, but not necessarily are all devotee Mexicans like this, or all women are like this, or all men are like this, but not necessarily are all devotee men like this, or all devotee women like this. So Prabhupada explains that. Whenever there was a discussion about the frailties of women that may be described in scripture, Prabhupada said that they're talking about materialistic women, and the frailties of men also, they're talking about materialistic men. So if we say all women are like this, because it's there in Shastra, you may say, well, those are tendencies or common frailties of women or common frailties or tendencies of men. But when someone becomes a devotee, a serious devotee especially, they don't necessarily have those frailties, or they have the ability to transcend them. So I think we should be careful in making generalizations. Men are more austere than women. Maybe that's true, but I don't think your average man in the world is more austere than your average devotee woman. I mean, I go to Mangalarti, there's 15 women there every morning, and there's hundreds of men that are probably sleeping at that time, devotee men. So those women are more austere than those devotee men. They're up early. They're doing that austerity. So you can't generalize. Oh, men are more austere. But why are they sleeping now? And why are these women at Mangalarti? So Prabhupada made those points many, many times when talking about the frailties of women. He said, no, this is or the frailties of men. Those are non-devotees. But when you become a devotee, things change. And we've often said that if you're a devotee, or trying to be a devotee, then you want to act like a devotee. So if the women were cursed that they can't keep a secret, now you're a devotee and you're empowered to do so many things. So don't give in to the curse. Okay. So Krishna Karshani is saying it all has to do with nature. And it has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is meant to help you transcend your nature or purify your nature. So, in other words, you can't say, let's say you have an instruction from Shastra, or your spiritual master or temple authority. You can't say, well, it's not my nature, because the instruction is there and the instruction must be executed. So we can say, it's my nature, therefore it's going to be difficult to follow this instruction, but because I'm a devotee, I have to follow it. So when we talk about nature, we're talking, when Krishna uses the word nature, he's not talking about so much your conditioned anarthas, samskaras. He's talking about your nature within varnashram, or nature as a Brahman, Shudra, and so forth. So that nature, that nature is there. So that's my nature. But we don't use the word nature as an excuse to not follow an injunction of scripture or an order of the spiritual master. So if you recognize you have that nature not to keep secrets, then you've got some work to do. Okay, it may be your nature, but you're a devotee. And if someone is speaking to you confidentially, now it's your service to be confidential, so you have to figure out how to develop this kind of amnesia that I've developed. And I can say one way that will help you develop the amnesia is to be focused on what they're saying for their benefit, not to be focused on just the ideas as a discussion, a general discussion topic. Because if you focus on those ideas as a general discussion topic, you're going to want to talk about it with other people. And then when talking about it with other people, you might tend to want to talk about what this person said. And if you ever do that, what I would suggest, and I do this, is if I want to discuss about conditioned tendencies that I find many devotees are confronted with, I will just talk in general. Say, many devotees have told me that they have this problem. And I will try to make sure that there's nobody listening to me that will say, wait a minute, I know the devotees you talk to. I know who you're talking about. I'll always try to protect them. So try to be general. Yeah, well, once a devotee, maybe I spoke to the devotee a few days ago, and I will say, to protect the devotee, I'll say, well, a long time ago, a devotee told me. So then you're all thinking, oh, a long time ago. I don't know who he knows from a long time ago. But if I say this week a devotee was telling me, and then you're all thinking, what devotee? I think I know who that is. That was Katie. That was definitely Katie. Or that was Krishna Karshini. So sometimes if I feel the discussion is valid and I don't want to spill the beans, as we say in America, to reveal, I'll say, well, this woman, many years ago, this woman, it actually was a man yesterday. And it also protects the person, because if you're hearing me say, and if you actually heard me say, he was supposed to keep it confidential, but he's saying, well, many years ago, a woman told him. Well, that's the same thing I told him. And then you'll feel like, okay, he's not revealing it. So if I feel it's important to discuss, it's a topic that it's a challenge everyone's dealing with, I might do it that way to protect the person. And all of you will be listening and you're thinking, yeah, this is something that I deal with. So if you have this tendency to want to reveal what other people are saying, just make up a person and saying, oh yeah, when I was a new devotee, somebody told me this. They're thinking, wow, that was 30 years ago. But actually someone told you that yesterday. So that's better. I believe, all right? Yes. So now we want to talk about listening without judgment. This is a big challenge for many of us, to listen without judgment. And why do we want to listen without judgment? Even let's say you say something that is Shastra will judge as wrong. And naturally, I would want to correct that. No, what you're saying is wrong. Because if you need to speak about it, and I need to be a facilitator of you speaking about it, then I have to listen. And I have experience of someone saying something wrong, and I just listened. And by listening, they realized what they were saying was wrong, because they were criticizing. This happened twice. They were criticizing two different people, two different occasions. And by listening, both people the next day just said, they just came up to me and said, I was just complaining. There's nothing wrong with that person. I'm just complaining. They both said the same thing. And all I did was listen. And I could have corrected them saying, no, what you're saying about this person is not true. Because what they were saying about these different people was not true. And I wonder, I have a theory. Give me a second. I want to clean the lens because it's so blurry. And this is an expensive computer. Now, why should it be blurry? Did that help? No. That's amazing. An expensive computer, and I put in a bad camera. Or maybe I just have my settings on. I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. So we don't judge people, because if we judge them, we'll block their ability to speak. And sometimes your judgments will come out on your face or in your body language. And so you might say something and you might see that the person you're speaking to they look upset or they look angry or whatever, because they're judging what you're saying. And now it's difficult for you to speak, right? So now you might say, but what if someone's making a fence? The Shastra says we should not hear offense. And if we hear offenses, then it will harm our devotional service. That's true. But I would also say, when you're hearing as a service, and maybe you can hear something deeper than the offense. Maybe you can hear the pain of the person. So maybe they're not really offensive or malicious. They're in pain, and you hear that, and you're not really hearing the offense, and you're doing it as a service. But at the same time, if you feel uncomfortable, you might have to pull out and say, I can't hear this because the person you're talking about is very dear to me, and I can't hear that you're accusing them of doing this and that. It's just breaking my heart. So sometimes you can't hear, and so you may have to tell them, I can't hear this, I'm sorry. But other times you may listen to see if there's something deeper, and they're just speaking out of their own weakness, their own doubt, and hearing would help them. And of course, you're not an accomplice to the offense, but you're doing it as a savor. If they're not cured by hearing, then that's a problem, because you're doing it as a service. And so if they don't benefit and you submit yourself to hearing some kind of criticism of another devotee, then that nobody wins. So we're assuming that your hearing is going to be therapeutic for them. But as I said, if you're hearing some offense, then it's very difficult for you to hear. You can just tell them, I'm sorry, but I can't hear this. You don't have to correct them. So the hearing process, the listening process, is not a correcting process. It's a process where you allow a person to sort out their thoughts and get things off their chest. Now, sometimes the devotee may have a doubt in their spiritual mastery, even a doubt in Prabhupada, or even a doubt in the whole process of Krishna consciousness. And it's difficult to hear that. I just don't believe in what Prabhupada's saying in this context, or what Krishna's saying here. How could it be? This doesn't make sense. And, part of you may think, well, this is aparad, this is offensive. But if you see that the person is just, they want to believe and they're just trying to sort it out, then just listen. Don't say anything, just listen. Just be a sounding board for them. That's your service. So I think all of us need to learn the art of listening, because it's a very important service that we need to render. And because it's part of the loving exchange, it's one of the 6 symptoms of love, that certainly we should learn that, because it enhances relationships. Now, I want to go to the second half of this talk, is how to hear, or why it's important to hear if you're a leader. Now you might say, but Prabhu, I'm not a leader. And that may be true presently, but I can guarantee you that if you remain in Krishna consciousness, you will have, officially or unofficially, some leadership position. You're going to have a position as a leader in some way. You'll be put in charge of something, or someone will see you as a leader. Like, for example, a lot of times people will come to me to talk about something, and I'll say, why are you speaking to me about this? Because this is not something I deal with. And say, because you're a leader and you could do something, or because you're a leader and you could talk to other leaders. So just because I'm an older devotee, they see me as a leader, even though I may have no official leadership position within the temple, or no official leadership position within ISKCON at all. But they see me as someone who has influence, or someone who could communicate, or someone even who could advise them in how to deal with a dilemma they're having. So leadership is important. Yeah, I want to read something to you. Hold on. I think you'll like this. I sent this to Krishna Karshini, but I think for this discussion, I think it would be nice just here, because this was written by, this was in the Airplane magazine. This will take a few minutes to read, but I think it's valuable. If you're a leader, or you're going to become a leader, many of you might say, well, I'm not a leader, I'm not going to become a leader, but many of you may become actual official leaders in the future when you're older. And so this is valuable information. Or maybe some of you will be on a temple council, a temple board, this will be important information that you could bring into the temple council. And as I said again, there may be, just if you stay in Krishna consciousness long enough, there may be people who will see you as a leader and want to confide in you. And they're confiding you about problems that are going on within the temple or within the city or within the country. So when you're a leader, people will come and complain, not necessarily about you, but they'll complain about what's going on in your particular temple. Or they'll complain about what's going on in this particular situation. So that's something you may want to get used to just by being an older devotee. So let's read this. This is called Lend Me Your Ear, The Secret to Business Success, Listening. And of course, this is in the business context, but we can apply it in our own context. Steve Jobs famously said that people don't know what they want until you show it to them. In other words, he didn't do marketing to find out what people want. He wanted to create a product that everybody would want. Well, that's a unique situation. That approach may have worked 20 years ago, but nowadays it's customers who are telling businesses exactly what they need to provide. So if you want to have a good business and you want to have a good marketing strategy, you have to know what people want. So you're listening to the customers to tell you what they want and what they need. So how would you apply this? Well, I was mentioning in a video I did the other day that one of our God brothers is preaching in a way that the younger disciples are saying that not everybody of our generation is going to appreciate what you're saying, but people of your generation will appreciate it, but our generation won't. So he had to learn how the newer, younger generations are thinking. He has to know the customer. What is it that they're thinking? And what are young people looking for now? What are they into? What is going to attract them? So how will you know? By telling them what they should learn, or by listening to them to find out what they want to learn, and then teaching that within a Krishna conscious context. The growth of social media has transformed how people communicate with brands. Platforms such as Twitter and Facebook give everyone a voice, and customers have plenty to say. As Amazon's Jeff Bezos once put it, if you make customers unhappy in the physical world, they might each tell 6 friends. If you make customers unhappy on the internet, they can tell 6,000 friends. Isn't that interesting? Many companies have teams that are actively listening for customer complaints, and a handful of organizations have created a chief listening officer position. I love that. Chief Listening Officer. I'm a CLO, Chief Listening Officer. What is his job? To listen to customers. Listen or when people come to your temple, what is it that they're looking for? You ever ask them? What are you doing that's good? What are you doing that they don't like? This is what leadership should be doing. How are we going to know how to minister to people perfectly unless we know what their needs are? And needs of various generations change. So, of course, this is a marketing context, but we're selling Krishna. So it definitely applies in the context of people outside of Krishna consciousness that we're trying to relate to. But I think every temple needs a chief listening officer as well to listen to devotees. T-Mobile, for instance, listening to customers at T-Mobile, for instance, listening to customers is at the forefront of the company's business strategy. The mobile service provider addressed customer pain points by getting rid of traditional contracts and eliminating many fees. So people didn't like contracts, and they didn't. Your contract is $50 after you pay fees at $73. So they got rid of the fees. The company's T-Mobile for Business division, in turn, ranked highest for customer satisfaction. naturally, if you listen to what people's needs are and you fulfill them, people will be happy. Right? Okay, let's apply that to devotees. What are the needs of devotees? I can assume what their needs are, and I may be correct, but I can't assume all the needs, and I can't assume specific needs for individuals unless they tell me. Now, a lot of times devotees may explain to us their needs, and we may think, no, you don't need that, or you don't want to validate for whatever reason those needs. Or worse, you don't even want to listen. Oh, they're so-and-so. Oh, no, I don't want to hear you because you just complain or something. And that's not good. Leaders need to be able to listen to people's needs, and they need to be able to listen to people's complaints without judging the people, without condemning them. Because if they do, there's two things that will happen. One, devotees are very, very happy if a leader will listen to them, even if a leader doesn't do anything, at least if the leader listens. Maybe the leader can't do anything. But if the leader listens, and especially if the leader tries to implement, then the devotees are so inspired because they know the leader's listening, and therefore we can improve things, and if there's problems, we can sort them out. And then you want to help serve that leader, you become inspired. But it's just generally we're not that inspired to work with a leader who doesn't listen to us. Like, I have an idea, I don't want to hear your idea. I have my idea, you do what I want. That's not very inspiring, unless my ideas are like super fantastic and you're inspired by them. But if you have ideas and I don't want to listen to them, that's not very inspiring for you. And so we may lose devotees because they can't express themselves, specifically when there are problems that are causing devotees to be disturbed or lose enthusiasm. Then those problems can't be discussed without leaders feeling that we're envious or we're critical. Then it can cause devotees to just get frustrated and go away and say, well, I don't want to be part of this organization because they have these serious problems and they're not aware of it, and they're not addressing it, or there's nothing I can do within that group or within that temple. I have to work on my own. And so then we either lose devotees or we lose unity. And I'm sure you've all seen this or experienced this. So don't make this mistake when you're a leader. Listen to your customers. He's cursing. Just shut up and listen. And they're saying here at T-Mobile, the chief listening officer listens to the conversations of his sales reps and their people to see if their people are actually listening to what the customers are saying. So I don't know if you've ever been on a customer call when they don't listen at all. You're trying to explain something and they're like, they didn't get it. It's very, very frustrating. Many other companies have made customers' opinions the top priority. In 2017, Nike launched a consumer direct offense that restructured its customer listening efforts to focus on 12 key markets that the company believes will fuel its future growth. The athletic brand is also relying on social listening to be able to adapt new products and campaigns to specific customer needs. Like we asked the question, like, what are people looking for now in spirituality? Or what, if they come to Krishna consciousness, what do they need? We need to be keyed into that and give that to them, and then apply the same process when they become devotees. And now that they're devotees, what are they looking for? What do they need? And I can say for sure, devotees need to be heard. They need to be felt valued. Everybody needs to feel valued. Then there is Trader Joe's. It's the store in America. The grocery chain has more than 900,000 followers on Instagram, but it is following 0 users. Instead, it has made a point of focusing on listening to customers. So it's not talking, it's listening. In store, Employees carefully take note of feedback, and the company tailors the purchasing experience to customer requests. TJ's continued success shows that the medium for listening doesn't matter, so long as the brand shows that it's listening. So they're not listening online, they're listening in the store. So, let's see what you have to say here. Is it not that we should be careful to who we are letting talk to us? I personally know devotees who are all about complaining and sharing with others with their personal problems, and they do nothing to resolve problems and expect others to listen to them. It looks that better to avoid such devotees. It looks, supposed to say it looks like they just want to throw out their garbage. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. It's true that if somebody just wants to find as many people to dump their stuff on as possible, it's actually making it worse for them by listening. I've studied this a little bit. And there is a threshold between what's therapeutic and what is harmful. So therapeutic is, okay, I want to get it out, I want to talk about it so that I can purify myself. And if that's the case, I won't have to continually talk about it. But if I'm just continually talking about it, it can make things worse because I'm not resolving it. So one of the things you can ask is, say, have you talked about this with anyone before? And or you can ask, are you just want to talk about it, or you actually want to cleanse yourself of this problem? Are you just talking about it just out of vengeance, and you're really just trying to get back at this person? Or do you want to talk about it to help? Because if you want to talk about it to help, then I would suggest this be the last time you talk about it, and I will listen to it. And you talk about it in a way that you want to get it off your chest and try to figure it out. But if you're just talking about it to everybody, I don't want to listen. It's just not going to help you. So that's valid. So you have to know how to listen, who to listen to, when to listen. The question, he says, unfortunately, Poland is struggling right now, but devotees. GBC, Prabhupada's disciple, is for sure advanced devotee, but unfortunately he doesn't have the ability to listen. What makes Polish devotees discouraged? Yeah. So the thing is, sometimes we don't want to listen because we don't think the person, excuse me, the person has anything to say, or we think the person's just going to disagree with me. That may be true. Both may be true, but I think we should still listen because, as I was saying before, a lot of times we're just satisfied to know that the leader is heard. So let's say you tell me something, your Krishna Karshana, you say something to me like, I think we should stop doing Harinam in Poland. I think it's ruining everything. And that we should form a band, and we should just do indoor programs with a beautiful band, and it will attract more people, and it'll be a better environment, something like that, right? So let's say I don't completely agree. Let's say I have a lot of faith in Harinam. But when you're speaking, I'll listen and I'll feed back and say, you're feeling that people get the wrong impression of us when we chant on the street. But if we do it nicely inside, which is a more acceptable way of doing it, people appreciate it. They go, yeah. And I can say, thank you for sharing, and say nothing else. And inside, I say, I don't agree with that. And I continue to go on Harinam. But I agree also that we should do it inside. So, but at least, Krishna Karshani, you know that I've heard, or I can say, I understand your point, and I know that if you do this inside, it's going to attract a different crowd. But I still feel that Harinam's important. It attracts different people, and we're giving anyone who hears the holy name will benefit, and we're giving so much mercy, etc. So you'll say, okay, that's your opinion. I don't agree, But at least we agree that the inside is doing it, and say yes. I can say, well, thank you for listening to me. So we know we've heard one another. Maybe we don't agree, but at least there is some inspiration in knowing we've heard one another, right? So I think that's important. If you're a leader, you can listen. You don't have to agree. Another thing you can do as a leader, let's say I'm listening to Krishna Karshani telling me about how bad it is to do Harinam Sankirtan in public. And she's saying, it's horrible, it's ruining us, it's bad. And I'm thinking, this is the Yuga Dharma. So I'm kind of boiling up inside a little bit, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just listening. And I feel like saying, well, Krishna Karshani, you don't really understand the Shastra on this point, or you don't understand Prabhupada. I don't say that. What I do is I'm thinking to say those things, but I think, let me wait a day or two and think about what she's saying and why she's saying it. Rather than condemn her, let me just be open to it, to consider it. What, is Harinam actually creating a bad impression? And this, that, and the next thing. And then I may send her an email. I say, why do you think it? And she might say, well, we don't have any good kirtan leaders. We just let anyone and everyone go out. And we don't have any dress codes. We don't have any standards. And we don't consider where we're going and what we're going and how to do it. So really, then I realized what Krishna Karshani meant is that if we actually did it nicely, went to a park, sat down, had good musicians, she would be into it. But she's saying, it's just creating a problem. And so, okay, now I understand. Or I'm thinking, well, I think maybe Krishna Karshani doesn't mean that Harinam is bad, it's how we do it, or where we do it, and when we do it. So then I ask her that. So I allow myself to not be emotional and think about it and think, well, she must have some point. What is it? Let me try to think of it. As a leader, you may disagree, but you always want to think, well, let me consider this point because maybe it's something I've never considered, and maybe I don't understand it the way they do. So rather than just respond negatively, no, Prabhupada doesn't want that. What you're saying, it's wrong. You don't understand. I'm the senior devotee. This is how we're doing it. We don't want to change things. You want to hear something funny? In the Tulsi prayers, the third line of the Tulsi prayers is E Nive Dana Dharo, E Nive Dana Dharo, Shakira Anugatakara. Now, a lot of devotees say E Nive Dana Dharo, but it's actually E Nive Dana. E Nive Dana Dharo, not E Nive Dana Dharo, right? So one devotee was telling me that one devotee was insisting it's E Nive Dana Dharo, not Dana Dharo. And what's the reason? He said, because, 1972, when I joined, that's how they were doing it. And now you're changing, all these new devotees, they're changing everything. You're always changing everything. So you come to me and say, I come to you and say, it's not Nive Danadar, it's Nive Danadar. You go, no, it isn't. We've always chanted. You're just trying to change. You're always changing things. Yeah. Right. So, so sometimes we do that. Someone makes a suggestion. I think, oh, they're offending Prabhupada, they're compromising, they're watering down, it's a liberal agenda. There's all these judgments are going on in our mind, and then we can't listen to what they're saying. And so what I'm saying is even if all these judgments are going on in your mind, try to understand it's just your judgment and they have nothing to do with what the person's saying. But even if you think that's what they're saying, give yourself time. Just listen to what they're saying. You don't have to agree. And meditate on it and think about it. That's the policy I take. I try to listen and say, okay, I'll think about it. I try to get more information. What are you saying? And generally, when I inquire more on what they're saying, then I realize that what I first thought they were saying, not actually what they're saying. They're not saying some stupid, crazy thing. They're making sense. Or they're just posing the possibility, why don't we try this? Let's see if this works. I'm not saying this is the absolute only way to do it. But if our goal is to make devotees and bring people to Krishna consciousness, why don't we try doing this? Because this other thing is not working. We haven't made devotees, we've only made 3 devotees in 10 years. It's not working. Well, you say, no, but this is how Prabhupada did it. Does Prabhupada not want us to make devotees? He doesn't want us to adjust as needed. And so let's talk about, we're not talking about adjusting the philosophy, talking about methodologies to share it. So I'm not saying it's easy to do that. I'm saying we all tend to respond emotionally. And if we're leaders, we need to be able to listen to people and listen to what they're thinking and be able to discuss with them and even be honest. And so let's say you say something. So Krishna Karshani says to me, I don't think we should do Harinam. And I could say, can you explain that to me? Because to me, that's the very thing that's missing from our movement that we're not doing. I think that's why we're having all the problems. And you're saying, no, all the problems are created by Harinam. I don't understand. Can you explain it to me? So I think, at least this is what I try to do. I try to take the point of view that not that the person is wrong, but that I need them to explain more. I'm misunderstanding. I'm not understanding why they would say that. Because I'm giving them the respect that they're a sincere devotee and their ideas are valuable. Not otherwise I'm thinking, well, this devotee's stupid. Don't they know Harinam is the Yuga Dharma? How could you say don't do Harinam? So then Krishna Karshani explains to me. She says, well, you remember when the devotees in India first went on a Harinam and everybody took them to be beggars? Do you remember that? Because that's what beggars in India do. And Prabhupada stopped the Harinam party. He said people are taking it cheaply. So then Krishna Karshani might say, that's actually what's happening now in Poland when we go out on Harinam. People are just laughing at us. They're not taking it seriously. But if we put a group of good musicians together, if we did some good marketing, if we rented a place and did kirtan there, number one, more people would hear us because we go out on the street and people would just ignore us. We could get 100, 200, 300, someday 1,000 people. And they'll listen to us talk. And I'm listening, going, okay. So I'm all about the Yuga Dharma. And then I realize, well, this is Harinam Sankirtan. It's just inside a building to people are actually hearing. And then I start thinking, then I go, okay, I understand. That sounds like a good idea. And then I question, you say, are you sure the people on the street, they're just ignoring us, they're laughing at us? And you say, yeah, I've studied it. They totally ignore us. They laugh at us. They just think we're losers. They tell us to get jobs. It's not working. And sometimes we have kirtan leaders that aren't good, and it just disturbs people. People put their hand, you see people walking by a Harinam party, and they're putting their hands over their ears. This is not what we want. So then I'm thinking about it, going, okay, that makes sense. I have to allow myself to detach from my emotional response to be able to hear, right? You agree? And so then I hear. Now I can hear you without judgment. Now I can consider. And as I'm considering, Krishna Karshani is becoming really inspired. He says, I like this Mahatma Prabhu. He listens, he considers. I could see that at first he didn't agree, but he's listening. Think, oh, I'm Polish, he's not. I should know the people. And he's asking questions, but what about this? What about that? And we used to do Harinam here. And he said, yeah, but things are different now. This is, Polish Woodstock. Yeah, everybody dances and chants. It's a different environment. At the festivals, it's different, but here, just doing Harinam this way, it's not working. If we did it this way, it would work. We need this. You have to dress like this. You have to have the kirtan leaders. You have to do it in these places. And then it'll. I go, oh, okay. So I'm listening. I'm learning. I'm open. And Krishna Karshani's thinking, oh, he's really great. He listens to me. He's gonna try to implement some of these things. And now Krishna Karshani is getting inspired. Wow, this is really great. She's inspired to give more energy because the leader will listen, and vice versa. So Nandita says, often when someone is sharing something with me, I get the urge to speak in between with my opinion or advice. How to control this urge to speak? A really simple way to do it is when they're speaking, ask them, when they say something, say, do you just want me to listen or do you want me to give advice? But I would say first for you, take the position of listener. Just put yourself in listening mode and just tell yourself, I'm just going to listen. And if you feel that it would be important to give your advice, like you've listened long enough and you still see that they haven't resolved the issue, ask the question, would you like my advice? And even if they say, what do you think? Ask the question, you are asking me for my advice? Yes. So, and sometimes, Nandita, you can know, you'll just feel that this person just wants you to hear. They just need someone to listen to them. So if you feel that, turn off. And understand that you can be doing a tremendous service to someone just by listening to them. So if you understand that you're doing a great service by listening, you're allowing someone to reveal their mind in confidence. They have to reveal it to somebody. Your service is to hear it. It's part of the loving exchange, to be a recipient to hear, to reciprocate with them. Then you understand, okay, if I say anything, I could be then stepping out of that service. I could then be breaking this guyam akyati. I'm no longer allowing them to speak because I'm going to interrupt and speak. And so the loving exchange is being interrupted or disturbed. So you have to think like that. Krishna Karshini says, I am a faithful client of one bank because they have very helpful customer service. They're about listening to the clients. What you read is 100% true, yeah. I think it's so funny because it's so obvious and it's not done enough. And if you want to be a successful preacher, you have to address the needs of people. You have to understand people, what they're looking for, and be able to satisfy those needs in a Christian conscious way. Thank you for saying that we have to learn who and how to listen. Nonviolent communication is helpful, at least for me. I'm in the process of learning. I'm not an expert yet, but I see benefits of hearing it. Yeah. So switch it around the other way, Krishna Karshini. So now a leader wants to speak to you about how important it is to do Harinam on the street. And in the last year, you've taken Harinam off the street and you've put it inside yoga centers and other places. So he's telling you, and then you have to be able to listen to him. So, it's not just we expect them to listen to us, we have to listen to them also. So then you have to listen to all his reasons and think about it and give it the benefit of the doubt. And then you may not agree, then you can get back to him and say, Maharaj, I thought about it, and my experience is telling me that we will be more successful if we take it off the street, or if we do it on the street only in this location or only in this way. But you allow yourself to think about it, consider it. That's important. Yes? How do you like my squeaky chair? And we get all this nice squeaks on the recording. Okay, I have an idea. I can't move it so much. I have to spray it with DW40. Maybe it'll stop squeaking. But when you listen to this class, you get to listen to the squeaks. Sorry. Or the raindrops. Yeah, okay. So, Nirmal Chandra says he's finding it difficult to apply this to his work. I always find it difficult. But experiment with it. Just go to work and experiment with listening and see what happens. See if it, just say, okay, I'm just going to listen as much as possible. See what happens. See if things change. It is difficult to listen because we like to talk. And if someone says something we disagree with, it's so difficult to listen to it. We just want to tell them, no, you're wrong. It's like this. Or just, please Stop talking. You don't know what you're talking about. But it may be us that doesn't know what we're talking about. That person actually may know. And even if that person doesn't know, they need to be heard. They have a feeling, they want to express it. And so when we say don't judge, we're also saying don't judge people's emotions. Don't judge how they feel. Don't say things like, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Say things like, so you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling upset because of this and that, instead of saying, well, you shouldn't feel upset. Nothing's wrong. Like that. Anyway, why don't you try it this week and give us a report next week how it went? Krishna Karshini, there's one advantage of doing this class on my computer, aside from the fact that it looks horrible, it's very blurry, and the level isn't so good. I'm looking up, right? Looking down. That all your messages come out in one spot, whereas on my phone I have to hit to get the whole message. Krishna Karshini says, I noticed that there are leaders, gurus, or Prabhupada disciples who are very open to learn new ways of communication to be able to listen better. Some others seem to be very closed and conservative. Yeah, I think, it begins with understanding what are the effects of listening and how it will help. Because every leader wants to be successful in their service. So if you convince them that by listening, devotees will be more inspired. By listening, we can do more to spread Krishna consciousness. We can work well. We can work better together. By listening to younger devotees who are more in touch with the way younger people are thinking, you'll get new ideas, which are more realistic to where the world is at now. So if you can just convince them that by listening to other devotees, it will help everything, because they're logical people, they're intelligent, and they want to see things succeed, you might be able to convince them. Of course, you have to get them to listen to you in the first place to explain why they should listen. I don't know if you're going to get beyond that hurdle with everyone, but hopefully, if you can, then you just explain that. You said there's so many devotees here. They're in touch with different people. They have different ideas. Many, I think we should consider, and that will help you. And Maharaj, just try to understand, even if you don't agree, if you just listen, it'll inspire people to want to do more. Because it's one of the loving exchanges is to listen, let someone reveal their mind, and you listen, and it'll help them and it'll make the relationship better. And if the relationship's better, they'll want to serve you. Right? You agree? That's just the way life is. Yeah. So Nirmal Chandra says, it hurts being attacked by their criticism, having to listen to their distress. Sometimes they are right, sometimes not. Their blame makes me want to defend straight away, of course. I want to defend myself because of fear of mediocrity, rejection, fear of not having done my work correctly. I find it difficult to tolerate. Yeah, but you can do your work better if you haven't done it well, and they're showing you how to do it better. And, it's like what you're saying is like, well, if I listen to them, it's going to destroy my false ego. But actually, if you listen to them, people will respect you more. You know that? People will not respect you if you defend yourself. If you admit a mistake, people will respect you. You'll say, yeah, I want to consider that. I'm sorry I did something wrong. Let me look into that. People will respect you infinitely more than if you try to pretend or cover up like there's no problem. So you have to have the mindset for it. And again, like I was just saying, you have to see the benefit of it. You have to see the utility of it. I'm the first one to admit it's hard to listen, but I can tell you from my experience, it's one of the best things you can do in terms of relationships. in terms of solving problems, and in terms of your own growth, to widen your own world, to be able to see things the way others have done it. So if you can get in a mindset that hearing feedback is good because you can do things better, and even if the feedback is wrong, at least it gives you an opportunity to sort it out with that person and explain, or listen more to that person for them to explain to you. And say, you know, I don't understand, but I'm going to think about it. You can just say that. Or when someone shares something that you've done wrong, you say, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to think about that. That's all you have to do. And just clarify. So what you're saying is you felt that I did this and I shouldn't have done that, and this was wrong and this was right. And say, yeah, say, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I want to think about that, and I'll get back to you. You are going to be the #1 leader in the universe if you do that. I guarantee you. It'll change everything. So just try to understand the value of it, and then get in the mindset that it's good, and that if you want to be respected, you'll be more respected by admitting your faults than by pretending you don't have any, for sure. The author of Nonviolent Communication is saying that whatever someone is saying to us, we should only hear please and thank you, meaning that by talking, they want to fulfill their needs. Behind every complaint is an unfulfilled need. Yes, behind every complaint. So when someone's complaining, then normal, you can try to understand what is the need. Well, what is the need? And you could ask them. So you have this need or that need. And there's 6 human needs. So if you know the 6 human needs, you can kind of understand, oh, there's a need for this, or there's a need to feel valued, and they don't feel valued, or they feel insecure, or their work is boring. You're taking away their creativity. The need for variety is being challenged, like that. So I think you should try it and report to us next week. Well, you can all try this and you can all report next week. Priya says, I've realized that sometimes when a friend shares how they're feeling, and if they're going through some issues, if I just listen to them, they'll end up feeling better, and they may realize something about themselves, which I knew already, and had told them, but they didn't understand at the time. But just by listening to them and hearing them out, they managed to come to a realization. Yeah, it's true, because sometimes you can't understand something until you realize it yourself. I have that experience often. It's my nature that I understand much better by going through a situation than someone telling me, oh, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. So that's a good realization. Larry says, by listening more to others, we can understand what is in their hearts. From there, we can understand how we may be able to help. Totally. So, like they say in sales, how the people who listen to the customers, they do the most sales. Salesmen think, no, I'm supposed to talk a lot. But how do you know what to talk about if you don't know what their needs are? If you don't know what they're looking for, what they want? And this is the sales technique in India. You walk into a store, you're looking at something, and they'll say, we have this, we have this, we have this, and they'll point out 6 things you don't want because they didn't ask you what you wanted. It's just something else, because you're looking at this, so they think because you're looking at this, you want this, that, that, and that, and you don't. So that's a prime example of not listening to your customer. And you're basically telling your customer what they want. It happens all the time in India. All the time. It's like, okay, thank you. I'm okay. I have eyes. I can see what's in your story. Don't worry. Or if they made friends and asked, well, is there anything you're looking for particularly I could help you with? That's what they do in America. In India, they just go, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this. So sometimes our lives are like that we're dealing with people totally out of alignment with what they want. Nirmal says, I think my biggest challenge is staying conscious and then Krishna conscious during working hours. If I stay conscious, my intelligence is there. When I'm not conscious, I just react. So how to remain Krishna conscious throughout the day if you're very busy? Well, I think you just answered the question by being conscious. So I think your Krishna consciousness at work is to learn how to not react. And so I don't want to instruct you how to do that. Of course, we have so many lectures where we talk about this. But what I would say to you is, I want you to figure out how to do that, and I want you to report. And I want you to pray to the super soul, my dear super soul, here's my problem. I need to act in this way, but I act in this way. So please guide me from within. And let's see if the super soul helps you and gives you guidance. I call this super soul therapy. So you're going to, if you can pray to the super soul with this question, this is my problem. How do I deal with this? How do I stop reacting? How do I listen? Whatever it is you want to do, pray for guidance for that and see if he gives you the guidance. And then next week, you're going to tell us what the guidance was and how you applied it. Or you're going to tell us you failed miserably. Krishna didn't speak to you. And then we'll go from there. Nikhil says, one thing I have learned is that if we don't listen or give people time to speak, we jump to conclusions and maybe even judge them incorrectly. Yeah. Well, we've already jumped to conclusions before they started speaking. But then as they speak, maybe more conclusions, right? You know, we were talking about this yesterday and making labels. It's kind of like we profile people. Oh, he's a Russian, so I already know what he's like, and I already have my judgments in place. Oh, he's a Brit. I already know what he's like. He's a Argentinian. I know what he's like. So as devotees, we're trying to do better, right? Than that. That's a pretty low level. So it's a good point. If we don't let them talk, we jump to conclusions, and most likely we've already jumped to conclusions just by looking at them or after the first few words. Or if they're part of an ethnic group, we already have some foregone conclusions. Okay, so Katie says, what to do if the other devotees' opinions of which path to take differ of the one Guru wants to take? But tell the Guru. Let him. And tell the Guru why they're saying that, what the circumstances are, what the context is. And then you can discuss with him. Sometimes your Guru, because he's not present with you, doesn't know the context of the situation, so he may give you an instruction, which is general instruction. Or maybe you misunderstood his instruction. Okay, so we're going to end here. It's nice seeing you all. Sorry I missed yesterday. That was a little bit of I go to the temple for Mangal Artik and I stay for like an hour and chant my rounds and I come back. And I don't go to the rest of the program. I often hear class online. Did I stay? Stay. You never leave Guru Puja. Stay. I stay and lead Guru Puja. And lo and behold, that was during class time yesterday at 8 o'clock. So we missed. But I think we covered this topic well. Please share this. It's just really important. This may be more important than you can imagine. But if our movement is going to thrive, survive and thrive, we all have to learn how to do this. It's really important. So share this video. Let's get this video out to 500,000 devotees. So you are all going to you're all going to like it, and you're all going to share it, and then you're all going to ask your friends, can you share this? Can you all share this with 100 people? So if you all get your friends to share with 100 people, this will go out to 200,000 devotees, right? Because we have like 20 of us, right? Am I doing my math right? If you share with 10, it's 200. No, it's only 2,000. No, but you're going to have 20 people who are each going to share. Yeah, anyway, figure the math out so you can get this to 200,000 devotees, right? You're going to share with so many devotees, then you're going to ask them to share it. You're going to each share with 20 devotees who are going to ask them to share with 20 devotees. Okay, how much does that go? If there were 20 of us, you share with 20, it's 400. And if 400 share with 20, then we're at 80,000. But then if those 80,000 share with 20, okay, then we're at 1,000,000 too. Yeah, I don't even know if there's that many devotees out there. So I want to experiment with this because a lot of these videos I do, I look at 100, 200, 500, 1,000, and some of them I feel, I'm not saying this out of pride, but I feel they're just important. And to get those numbers, it just requires that you share, you like, you all make a comment, you all like, and then you all share and you ask people, could you share this video with 20 or 50 or 100 people on your Messenger or Facebook? And could you ask them to share with 20 because I think this is really important? And then you'll see all of a sudden, we might have 100,000 people watch this. And then once you get it up, then more people will watch it. If we can get this to 50,000, then automatically it goes in front of more people. So I think there's a lot of things which are valuable for all devotees to learn, but I think this particularly is important in helping devotees and helping keep more devotees in the movement. Because people leave Krishna consciousness because they're not heard, or they see things going wrong and they can't say anything. They don't know who to say. They don't know who to talk to. Everybody thinks they're just complaining. So that's another topic. Maybe next week we'll teach you how to complain. Okay, so let's see if we can get 100,000 shares for this. You all, please share this with your friends, at least 20. Ask them to share with 20. I don't know, maybe you can share with 100. I don't know. I actually don't know how sharing works, but I think you just hit share and then you send a message. You can hit share and send a message, and then you can send a message to all your Facebook Messenger people and say, can you share this? Can you please share this with 50 people? Or whatever, maybe 50 is too much. Can you share this with 20? It's really important. Give it a title. I don't know what a good title for this is. This video will save ISKCON. Wow, that should be good. Some title, okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hare Hare.